as the Rebbe wanted, which is what we're going to hear about now from Rabbi Shais Taub, who's going to share these the heroes of Chav Bei Shvat. Rabbi Taub.
Rabbi Fowler. So I'm not going to speak long, but the Sikha from Chav Bei Shvat Tovshin Nun Beis, the Rebbe speaks about three tekufas, three eras in the Nesias of the Frierdiker Rebbe. That's how the Rebbe describes it. One of them is until Yud Shvat Tovshin Yud, meaning until the Hilula of the Frierdiker Rebbe. The next tekufa is from Yud Aleph Shvat Tovshin Yud Aleph, which is Kabbalas and Nesiya, so the first full day of the Rebbe accepting leadership. And then the Rebbe describes Chav Bei Shvat, the day of the Rebbetzins passing, as the third shlav, the third rung on the ladder, the third era, which is the culminating ultimate era that brings us into Geula. So these are obviously very lofty concepts, but they're not meant to remain lofty. We're meant to relate to them and to live them. So how do we understand these concepts? So the Rebbe describes it as the era first of 10. 10 is Yud Shvat. The Frierdiker Rebbe's Yortzeit is the 10th day of Shvat. And what is 10? We all know Chassidus 10 is perfection. 10 is completion. So the Rebbe says that basically that's the idea of tzuputzim the knapelach, of polishing, shining the buttons. And basically that was the Frierdiker Rebbe until Yud Shvat is finishing everything that has to be done in the world. Then the next era or phase is not 10 but 11. Echad Aser. 11. And why is it 11? First of all, because the first full day of the Rebbe's Nesias is on the 11th. Then the Rebbe also mentions that his birthday is the 11th, the 11th of Nisan. And that it took place in the 11th year, in Tovshin Yud Aleph, 5711, 1951. So that's a lot of 11s. And what's 11? 11 is beyond. 11 is Kesed. The Rebbe talks about you have Aseres HaDibros, which is 10. And then the Anoichi, Atzmos itself, is the 11. And that's basically from the beginning of the Rebbe's Nesias until Chav Bei Shvat. And then we go to a whole new level, which is Chav Beis, which is double 11. 11 days from Yud Aleph Shvat. And what's double 11? It's where there's no more 10, everything is 11. What does that mean? That means where even our Gashmias becomes Elokus. Now, what does that mean, that even our Gashmias becomes Elokus? That even in our practical day-to-day life, it's godliness. So the way that Rabbi describes it there is that the Dira B'Tachtonim is to such an extent where the Dayer and the Dira become one thing. That it's all Atzmos. And this is the era of the Rebbetzin, where basically there's nothing but Eibishter. It's not that we have our Ruchnias and we have our Gashmias. No, everything now becomes Elokus. And of course, that's the idea of Mashiach. So what does that even mean? Like, how do we begin to integrate such an idea? So there's a story that's not an unknown story. In fact, I think it was told by the person it happened to at one of the Farbrengens here at the oil one Chav Bei Shvat. But I called the person it happened to a couple days ago just to verify and make sure that the words, especially the Rebbetzins' words, were accurate. So the story is that I spoke to Rosh Shlomo Bistritsky, and he told me that when he was 18 years old, he was in Eretz Yisrael, and he flew in before Beis Kislev Tavshin Mem Ches to be there for the big events. And he said as soon as he arrived home, his father was very disappointed with him. He told him, you shouldn't be here. You should be in yeshiva. You're a shliach. You don't belong here. So he knew that his father was already not so happy he was there. Then came the events that probably you're all familiar with on Beis Kislev, where Bachram were celebrating, were dancing, and the Rebbe expressed his disapproval. And of course, that really sealed the deal that Reb Shlomo's father was disappointed with his son even being there. And he said he felt the tension in his home that, this disappointment, rejection, and he felt bad. I mean, obviously he felt very bad. So he says Friday night he came home from shul and he was waiting for his father to come home to make kiddush. And he knew that his father would stop off at the Rebbe and the Rebbetzins' house after shul. Mitzad Gesund, he would check in on the Rebbetzin, check in on her health. So his father, Reb Leibel, comes in, and all of a sudden he's smiling. He says, Shalom Aleichem. And Shlomo knows his father hasn't been too happy with him the past few days, so he says, Ta. He says, I had a very open relationship with him, so I just asked him up front, Ta, why are you all of a sudden so happy to see me? So he says, I want to tell you, I was just by the Rebbetzin. And I told her, I'm not happy that Shlomo came in. He shouldn't have come in. And Shlomo tells me, I'm thinking, oy vey, this is what I need. Like, bad enough I was there with the group on Beis Kislev, and now my father is saying to the Rebbetzin, specifically, my name is one of the guys who was there, and the Rebbetzin is going to tell the Rebbe, like, now it's even worse. So, Reb Leibel tells his son, he says, I tell the Rebbetzin, my son came in, he shouldn't have come in. So the Rebbetzin says to me, Leibel, go easy on him. And I said, did she say go easy on him? He said, you know what? All I know is what he told me right when he came home from having spoken to her. I said, did she speak to him in English? He said, it's very likely. They spoke, in English. So he said it was probably what she said. She said, go easy on him. She said, in other kreisen, and I guess that she said in Yiddish, what are the Bachrim, what are they into? What's their gashmias? And I asked him, she said, gashmias? He said, look, again, I'm only telling you what my father said when he had just a few minutes earlier spoken to her, so I think he was saying what the Rebbetzin had said. But she said, in other kreisen, in other circles, what's the Bachrim's gashmias? It's very interesting that was, if that was the Lashon, but that's very interesting. The gashmias, what's their physicality? Movies. And then, by the way, I watched the video of when Rabbi Bistritsky said the story here at the Oil. I don't know if I should add this, but he told me that this is what his father said when he came back from the Rebbetzin. I'll say it. Girls. She says, what's so bad then if our Bachram's Gashmias is the Rebbe? So, with that loving limud zchus that only a mother could come up with, this father was able to embrace his son and tell him, I'm happy that you're here. And I'm not telling you the Hayarah is to dance when the Rebbe doesn't want you to dance, because the next day, Shabbos at the Farbrengen, the Rebbe doubled down on it and said, you know what? Even if they're excited, the Rebbe actually said, somebody asked me why I was so upset. And people theorized maybe it was a discussion. We don't know if it was a discussion that Rebbe had with the Rebbe. But the Rebbe doubled down and said, if they want to dance, they could have done it during their eating times. They don't have to do it during learning times. So I'm not saying the Hirah is to dance. But what I'm saying is that the Rebbetzin is bringing out this idea in such simple, relatable terms. What does it mean that we're in a new era where it's all 11? That even our Gashmias is Elokus. That we're in an era of Mashiach where there's no more conflict anymore. Everything is Getlichkeit. It's that what is a Bacher's Gashmias is Rebbe. And I think, this is bli achrayus, this is just my understanding of the sichos, that this is a theme in the way that Rebbe taught us to relate to the Rebbetzin and Chav Bei Shvat. There's a sicha from the first yard site, from Parshas Yisroi, Shabbos Parshas Yisroi, Tafshim Mem Tes, and the Rebbe speaks there about the daily Rambam, about the 3 chapters of Rambam that day, which was Hilchas Shabbos. And it speaks there about Hamaver Eish Kol Shehu, somebody who lights even a tiny fire is Chayev, he's transgressing Shabbos. But when, provided Vahu, Shehei Tzorech Le'efer, if he needs the ash. The Rebbe explains that because fire can be destruction, and a malacha on Shabbos has to be productive. It can't be destructive, it has to be productive. So when is fire productive? Not when you're getting rid of something, when you're making something. So what are you making? You're making ash. What do you need the ash for? I don't know, shampoo. It doesn't matter what you're using the ash for. But the point is, yeah, people make shampoo out of ash. So the point, maybe charcoal toothpaste. The point is, you're making something. So the Rebbe teaches it like this. A maver eish, a person who has a spiritual excitement. Kol shehu, even the tiniest amount, it's good when, meaning it's productive, it's a malacha, it's considered to actually be affecting the world, making a dira b'tachtena. Remember, malachas are whatever was done to make a mishkan, and we're making the whole world a mishkan. So what does it mean that your eish, that your excitement, your ruchnius is productive excitement? When it comes down to physicality, and like it explains in Igeres HaKodesh, Siman Tezvav, that Afer is when you take the wood and you burn it, and all the other Dalid Yisaides leave except for the Afer, and you have the Gashmias, Shiba Gashmias. By the way, that's a lashon that Rabbi uses. Gashmias, Shiba Gashmias. That the Gashmias, not just the Gashmias, Shiba Gashmias becomes Elokus. So this is again the idea of taking the Ruchnias and making it very, very, very practical, making it relatable, making it our taiva and our pleasure, so that it shouldn't be that chas v'sholem we have one compartment called ruchnias, and then we have another compartment called guilty pleasures. In the era of post Chav Bei Shvat, it becomes one thing. So we don't just learn the Rebbe Sichos because they're holy, we also learn them because they speak to us on an emotional level, because we're connecting personally, because we have a taiva for it. It's our pleasure, it's our excitement, it's our geschmack. It's all this concept, again, of there's no maila and mata. Everything becomes one. And also, the Rebbe speaks in this same sicha from Parshas Yisroi Mem Tes about the idea of the name Chaya Mushka. That Chaya is the Chayas, which means the Ruchnias. And Mushka is Belaz, it's a foreign language name. And that's the idea, again, that even the spirituality becomes physicalized, it becomes our physical life. Again, what does it mean? The Rebbe's Gashmias is the Rebbe. That what excites us and what we do to serve Hashem become one thing. Also, in that same year, Reish Chodesh Kislev Tafshim Mem Tes, there was a Siyum Sefer Torah that began the Sefer Torah in the Rebbe's house during the Shiva. It was a Sefer Torah that was sponsored by women. And the Rebbe spoke about the idea this is a Sefer Torah that was written by women in honor of a woman. And the Rebbe spoke about the idea, what's a woman? I know that's like a big thing today, right? What is a woman? Okay, so I'm going to tell you, what is a woman? The Rebbe said the Aves and the Amois were one unit. But what happened was the Hashpois, the energy that the Aves gave off, only reached the physical world because of the Amois. And so too, the Rebbe says, Nisiei Chabad, that their Hashpah became present in the physical world through their rebbetzins. Very, very, I don't know if you call it shocking words, but new language that I'm not sure that before that you find things said so clearly. The role of a rebbetzin is to take the kedusha and make it tangible. Again, like the rebbetzin told Leibel Bestritsky, the Bachram's Gashmius is Rebbe. So, Bepoil, what can we do with this? First of all, I should mention one hira that the Rebbe says explicitly, and that is Kviyas Itim. Why Kviyas Itim? Because you're going to say, oh, the Rebbe always wants to get in Kviyas Itim, wherever he can get us to learn more Torah. But I want to explain to you why the Rebbe says Kviyas Itim. Because Chaya Mushka is 470, which is Begamatra Eis. Eis means time. Time means Hischalkas Azman. It's a very physical thing. So within time, meaning time, space, within physicality, to bring Kedusha. In other words, let me explain it like this. If you learn Torah whenever you're excited about it, then Torah remains too spiritual. But if you make Torah part of your schedule, if it's built into your day, then you're making it part of your physical experience. So that's one thing, Kviyas Itim LaTorah. But another thing, and the Rebbe says this is a hera to women, but I think we can all take this personally. In the Sikh of Tashin Nun Beis, and I think you see this with the Rebbetzins Limud Schus, the Leibel Bestritsky, about how lovingly she explained how to look on a bacher in a positive way. The Rebbe says that women have a special mission through Adira No and Kalim Noim, Pashut having a nice physical environment to make life pleasant, and thereby imbue in their children a Geschmack und a Warmkeit, an enjoyment and a warmth for Yiddishkeit, which the Rebbe says is especially implanted through the Edelkeit und, what was the Lashon, Levi? Liebschaft. Edelkeit, Levi Shem Tov was helping me to look at this sikha a few minutes ago. Edelkeit und Liebschaft, which is the Natur von der Yiddische Freude. Edelkeit und Liebschaft, and thereby implanting Geschmack und Warmkeit. Okay? Yiddishkeit, Chassidishkeit has to be enjoyable. It has to feel inviting. It has to feel embracing. It can't be through harshness. It has to be through love. And the Rebbe is describing that this is the special talent of women to do this for their children, so that even when they grow up, they will have this warmth and this enjoyment for Yiddishkeit. And Bechlal, all of us can develop our Geschmack in Yiddishkeit, and I think it's the same thing, by the way, with the Kviyas Itim. I don't think they're separate things. I think it's all one concept. That when you take Torah personally, when you learn a Sikha, not just because of the Kedusha of it. You know, sometimes people learn Likutei Sichas for the Kedusha, and then to be stimulated, to be entertained, they have other things that they, other sources that they find more, relevant, exciting, guilty pleasures, we call it. But what we're saying here is that Likutei Sichas becomes our guilty pleasure. It becomes our Geschmack. That what are we turning to for pleasure, for relaxation, for personal enjoyment? Not just because it's our duty, but this is what I like, is also Likutei Sichas. So when we learn Siddur in a way that we know that it's not just Hoicha and Yonim, but it's very, very relatable, then it is Geschmack. When you learn a Sikha and you know it's speaking to you, about you, trust me, there's no pundit on YouTube, lahavdil, that can come close to that level of Pashut Mitzad the Nefesh Ba'amis, that level of enjoyment. The Rebbe becomes your Gashmias, not just your Ruchnias. So this is the era that we're in, the post-Chof Bei Shvat era, which the Rebbe calls the ultimate shlav. This is the era that brings us into Geula, where there's no longer a division and a dichotomy in our own lives, that everything becomes Elokus. So it should be with a Geschmack, with Liebschaft, Warmkeit, all those good things that the Rebbetzin represents, and we should not just see it in the Rebbetzin, we should see it and live it in ourselves.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Taub. And indeed, on this day of Chof Bei Shvat, when we're inspired to follow the Hiroyas and the lessons of the Rebbe, and like the Rebbe said, that he's going to we learn from the example. We've had some examples shared, and just some of the Hiroyas and Chof Bei Shvat Tavshin and Beis, the Rebbe actually distributed a kuntras, a booklet that included within it talks that he gave with these lessons, and mamorim that were published in the previous years also for Chof Bei Shvat, for this day. Certainly as Chassidim, we will learn this and focus on the lessons and instructions that the Rebbe gives us. And of course, like we mentioned earlier, if we haven't yet given tzedakah for this day, the Keren Chomesh, you can be found online at charity.com/Keren470, Keren 470. And the Rebbe said that 470 is the gematria of Ace, like Rabbi Taub mentioned. And the Rebbe said to give in amounts of 470, whether it's if somebody wants to give $4.70 or $47,000 or halavai $47 million in amounts of 47. We're going to conclude the official part of the Farbrengen with another video, a short video of the Rebbe, where he speaks of the eternity of the Rebbetzin, and something very interesting, and it's with the former council member of New York City. So I'd like to thank, before we put on the video, the Vadar V'choim, who put together this Farbrengen and Farbrengenischen and material for Chassidim, to have a Warmkeit, to have the warmth of the Hiskashrus, of the connection to the Rebbe, and may each and every one of us have the hashpoyas, the blessings, the energy that comes from this auspicious day, with this special connection that we have with the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin, and indeed merit the promises and the fulfillment, the Kiyum Kol HaYehudim, like the Rebbe said, that we will have together with being once again reunited with the Rebbe and the Rebbetzin at the time of Mashiach's coming, V'akitzu v'ramnu sheikh l'yafar,